Afternoon. Still hard at it?
Oh yes, I've finished the risk assessment. I'm now planning who's going to do what, where and how it's going to be done. It's not easy.
So you're talking about the three components, which are people, location and qualities.
That's the plan, yeah.
If you want some help, I find it useful to think about our zero code policy. Do you remember the 5 principles?
I think so. It was ready to work, kitted out, stick to the plan, stay alert and shout out.
Full marks. If you think of the risk assessment as being the plan we are sticking to, you need to think about the other applicable components, such as being kitted out and ready to work.
So kitted out is having the right tools and equipment to do the job, right?
Yes.
So I should list what equipment the members on site will need to be working safely.
But it's not just equipment. You also need to think about the site specifics as well, like the people who are using the equipment and the location where the equipment is going to be used. That's very important when you're working at height.
So the 2 other things I need to think about are people and locations?
Yes, and there's one last thing you should consider. There's no use having a scaffolding tower if it's defective in some way or not strong enough. You need to think about the quality of the equipment for the purpose and the people using it.
I'm with you so far.
Well, there's no point specifying a crane if no one is qualified to use it. The equipment might be fit for purpose, but if there's no one to use it, it's not appropriate, is it? That's a quality issue.
Okay, so I need to sort out the people part first.
That's a good place to start. If you start with the people, you'll know what sort of equipment they'll be likely to be able to use. So what things do you want to consider when you're thinking about your people?
Well, like you said, the people need to be competent and trained in the use of the equipment we select for them.
That's a good one. What else?
If I've got lots of people on the job, I need to make sure that there's enough equipment for everyone.
Very good. We also need to think about how long they may be using the equipment. Competent, trained people can use a drill, but we must also consider the specific types of the occupational health hazards associated with our equipment. Vibrating equipment can cause irreversible damage called hand-arm vibration syndrome, HAVS for short, if not managed properly. We could reduce the HAVS risk by using battery-operated equipment where practical.
Ah, good point. I wouldn't have thought about all of that, and the length of use. I'll put that in.
The other people you have to think about are the people in the general vicinity. How will you keep them safe from potential harm?
I could use warning signs, cordon off the area, and create an exclusion zone.
That's exactly what I'd do too.
And as ever, I have to consider what happens if this all goes wrong.
Yes, the rescue plan.
So my question is, what is the rescue plan if the equipment fails?
Exactly. You need to answer that question in some detail as before.
I'll go away and think about the details. And if you don't mind, perhaps I could check those through with you later?
I'd be happy to. It's a good idea to get your plan sense checked.
Cheers. That sorts out the people part of this risk assessment. Now I've got to do the location and then I suppose the qualities.
What do you think you need to include in your plan when you're thinking about location?
If I want to use a scaffold tower, then I need to undertake a point of work risk assessment and consider things like the general area, overhead cables nearby, whether the site is on a slope, if the ground is firm enough for the job, if there's enough room around it, and whether I can put the mandatory exclusion zone around the base of the tower without restricting access to other areas on the site.
Yes, that's really excellent, Dave. I think you should also consider how your workers will reach the tower location safely and understand the risks and controls.
How do you mean?
Well, for example, if the tower is sited near an access road, is there a risk of being run over? Are there any slip and trip hazards nearby? I could go on.
No, you're fine. I can fill in the rest.
Don't forget that we'll need to be briefed on all these risks and controls that you're implementing before starting work, and whoever does the briefing will need to ensure it's understood before the work starts.
How can we be sure that our guys have understood the briefing?
Good point. How would you do it?
I think I'd like to ask some spot questions to check everyone's understanding of the plan and the risks involved.
Then that brings us to the last part of your risk assessment, the qualities.
Do I need to discuss qualities of people or qualities regarding the equipment?
Both.
So, to erect a PASMA tower, I know that you need to be certified as competent. So that's a people quality consideration, right?
Right.
And the tower itself needs to be fit for purpose in every way. That's an equipment quality consideration, isn't it?
Right again.
Okay, I think I've got the hang of that sort of thing then.
Also bear in mind, and your tower is a good example of this, that you've got to safely transport the equipment and ensure the people involved can safely get to the equipment. If your tower weighs more than 25 kilos, and it just might, you're not going to be slinging that over your shoulder, are you? So you need to think about things like that too, okay?
That's great. This is going really well, I think.
You're almost finished, and there's just one final thing I didn't mention before, and that's inspections.
Okay, what's involved here?
Well, you mentioned the equipment must be fit for all purposes, but it must also be fit for all purposes at all times. Some equipment needs to be inspected for fitness for purpose. Some equipment may even need to be certified. Things like safety harnesses have to be certified every 6 months, as they're life-critical pieces of equipment.
I suppose I could say that all equipment should be pre-checked before use.
That's a good habit to get into. Definitely put that in.
Anything else?
I would add that if the equipment is moved, dropped, or suspected to have been mishandled or abused, I'd get that checked over again. Does that make sense?
It really does. What about if it's windy?
Or if there's a lot of rain about, that could affect the quality of the location or the quality of the equipment.
Yeah, the tower might sink into the mud if it's really coming down, couldn't it?
Dead right.
Wendy, you've helped me out again. Thanks for that.
My pleasure. Let me know if you need any more help. I'll be around.
Thanks. See you later.